And 3 more pallets ready to go. We have a lot of work going on the recycling side of it. We're in the process of trying to put a plan together of how we're going to move forward with mission trips and things, whether this fall or next spring. So it's all in the works yet. More information to come there.
Thank you, Scott, for all the work being done there. We have a potential mission trip coming up in the fall to Jamaica again. Back there would be our first one, and then in February of next year to Suriname in South America, the northeastern coast down there. So we'll let you know more, but we'll be back doing that, making a difference for those that need vision care. And tail twister, Jamie.
I'm excited you're starting together, but grab it from you. I walk around. We had a discussion on pins the last meeting. One of the things that was decided that wearing your pin on your badge is unacceptable. Yeah. Because the whole purpose of the pin, in my opinion, is that you wear it and hope somebody asks you about it. So personally, I used to wear a suit all the time. Obviously, I don't anymore. It was real easy. I had a pin on every suit I had. And I think I still do because they're all down in the closet in the basement. But I'm going to try to start wearing my pin every day. It's easy enough. Put it on your collar. If you get in the habit with it, you'll probably do it more often. I would like to suggest that you consider doing that too, because it doesn't do a lot of good to have your pin here. You got a badge, we know you're a lion. I don't need to ask you about the lions and all that, but the pin helps if somebody comes up and says, "What is that?" Because they, well, this one I can't see because I got one of Gary's little ones on. I would encourage you if you could do that. And coming real soon, if I see a pin on the badge, that'll be fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna turn into a nasty guy. Okay. So I'm not charging any pins today.
Because I don't know where it went.
Jim will find it.
People are just giving me money. I like this. I haven't even asked for any money yet. Anybody else? Okay, that's the pin story. I hope you'll consider trying to wear it more often. I know I have been totally out of the habit since I stopped wearing sport coaters. Let me guess.
A good friend of mine came to visit today. Our coworker.
Glad to have you here. Thank you.
Again, Tim, good to have you back. This has only been, let's see, 2000 and, when did we start? 2006 or 5?
Yeah, at least.
I don't know, it was just before the woman was in,
707.
No, Columbus,
no, it goes back before that,
Peoria,
Peoria.
2005.
Yeah, it was
So-
started before that.
So Tim has been involved with what is now, Experience Grand Rapids since then, working with us on our conventions that we've had through here. And we have had him with guests many times, so we'll be looking to welcome into membership at your next meeting that you come. Because you know what we do and you do it too. So we look forward to that. Okay. No strong arm, but after, what is it, 17 years, I think we can do it.
Does everybody have their ticket to get out of, get free out of parking? Okay, happy bus. Anybody have anything to be happy about over the last couple of weeks or so? Oh,
Cheryl, I will not be here at the next meeting and
well, I got happy bus.
we will be in Nairobi, Kenya, doing a mission with Lions from the East Coast and with Kenya. So I will have some more money if we do get back.
Yeah.
If we get
First time you heard the F on it? Yes.
Off to Arizona for 2 months, be back in April.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
that's gonna take a lot more money when you come back.
Yeah. $1 for 2 months, there may be more coming at you.
Remember Danny Palmetier?
Yeah.
Danny Palmetier was a tail twister for 50 years for this club. 50 years. And when you came back, if you didn't give $20, you would give $20 at least. Okay? So when you're going on vacation, he said, a lot of people don't ever get to take a vacation. So this is all going to the folks and to support those that can't get away. So coming back with more than $1. Okay?
Plus inflation.
Right.
When this takes care of any more than people.
Jumped in the car Friday at noon, drove to New Smyrna Beach, ran a half marathon, back today. That's how we go.
New Smyrna Beach, I'll be down there in April,
Oh, nice.
where we did almost all of our spring breaks.
We've been there.
Yeah. Going to that same place.
Really?
Yeah. Any other happy bug? And I guess we got raffle coming today. Anything else? Fine. Don't this.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Here, right here.
Guys, are so organized.
I'm not.
Yeah. White chip, everybody in here. It was on top. Yeah. First one done, get your $5 back. Okay. I guess we'll draw. Oh, yeah. Pick your own.
Yes, sir.
Can you read it?
Sure, you better. It is 2161577. I did that.
577.
577.
Oh, it's me.
It's close.
Yeah. Okay. Next one.
New number 10.
Oh, yes. 2161490.
490. Yeah.
It's still lucky. Red.
Unfortunately, our treasurer is not here. We don't know much next week. Yeah. Should I take this? I think.
You're gonna need it.
Okay.
You get half the cost.
Half the pot, I think it's like $400, $500.
You guess how many grand?
Like here. No.
No, good guy.
There's probably 20 left in there, so.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, some guys just hear about it.
I haven't had that.
Fire up that phone.
I go buy a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think there was a setup and we only need to redraw.
All in favor?
I think the bars open after lunch and Kim's buying. But Kim's always buying. All right,
Plate of cookies here, if anybody wants another cookie.
give them to Kim.
Give the Shelley.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to have Shelley Irwin come up and introduce our guest speaker for today.
Thank you to John and Cheryl, who do such a good job with our newsletter. So you'll find Rick Baker's extended bio there. So the last thing I'm gonna do is read it, but I think Rick serves on more boards than I do. So congratulations. So giving to the community is important. Rick is president and CEO, of course, of our Grand Rapids Area Chamber of Commerce, which is expanding. Began the career back in 1988, and we're so lucky to have Rick for about 12 years at this point. I was on the board with his transition, so it was wonderful to have him come, and I'll never forget our first interview when he came into the studio. That was a blessing. He boats in the summer, travels to see the grandkids, and we're lucky to have Rick. So without further ado, big round of applause.
Thank you, Shelley. Well, it's a privilege to be here, and it's an even bigger honor to serve as the president and CEO of your Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce. It's such a dynamic community, a dynamic business community that this is the fourth Chamber of Commerce that I've worked for. It's been almost my entire career, and by far the best business community that I've had the opportunity to work for. The level of engagement from the business leaders in this community is second to none in the other communities. And I think what we see around us is a reflection of that level of engagement and leadership from our business community. In October, this past October, the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce turned 135 years old. 135 years ago, a group of business people, much like those sitting in the room today, decided that they probably could have more influence and more impact in their community with a unified effort, a unified voice than on their individual efforts. And so they formed the Grand Rapids Board of Trade, is what it was originally called. We were one of the founding members of the United States Chamber of Commerce when they were formed about 35 years later in Washington, D.C. To this day, 135 years later, our mission is very much the same. How we deliver our work has changed. The priorities for the business community change over time, of course, but we are still fierce advocates for the business community with the purpose of creating a thriving and prosperous region for all. I'll share with you just a little bit. We have 5 main areas of work, and I'll touch a little bit on each of those 5 areas, and then going to give you a little bit of a sneak preview of some information we're going to share at our annual meeting coming up here February 1st. The 5 areas of work that we do now are we do a lot of advocacy work on policy to create an environment in our community and our state where businesses can be successful. Well, if you're in business, you know that public policy can, make life a little harder. And so we work on a lot of issues to make life easier and knock down roadblocks for the business community. We have a lot of leadership development programs. Drew is a graduate of Leadership Grand Rapids about 4 or 5 years ago, perhaps. Yes, sir. And that's our flagship program. Leadership Grand Rapids was created in 1987, rather. But we have a lot of other programs. Diversity, equity, inclusion resources. That's something a little bit newer for us in the past several years. Business growth services, of course, that's something that Chambers had at its core purpose from the very beginning. And more recently, in the last 5 years, our office space has become a part of our benefits. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. Specifically, a couple of issues to touch base with on the advocacy front. Some of the priorities, even in the 12 years I've been here, I've seen the priorities are those things that are challenging our business community change dramatically in 12 years. It used to be the cost of healthcare, health insurance, some of those things. Now it's talent, things that are affecting their talent, like affordability and availability of housing, childcare, and those kinds of things. So what we advocate for changes depend on what's causing our business community burn or keeping them up at night. Housing is a big one right now, as you can imagine. If the supply and demand is way off balance. We did a housing needs assessment in 2019 that showed that at that time that we needed 22,000 new housing units from 2019 to 2025. And that's across the entire cost spectrum, because everything is related. If there's nothing available for me to move up to, then I don't exit this home and it doesn't create a spot for someone else to come into. And so we just, and this is a preview, I'll tell you a little bit about, we just finished a new assessment because things changed over the last 2.5, 3 years with COVID, et cetera. So we wanted to get on recalibrate the housing needs assessment. Well, it got worse. Our assessment that we actually just have a draft that was telling Shelley over lunch. We have a draft of the assessment. We will release the final results in February. It's now predicting that we need 35,000 units by 2027. So a significant increase in disparity between what we need and what we have available. So that's why we're spending a lot of time on that. Another area that is affecting our workforce is availability of childcare. And I think the COVID pandemic really shined a light on that for employers. And not the impact. And if any of you had worked remotely and you saw children run into the room when your employee was on Zoom or in a meeting, we really got I think, a different understanding of the impact of childcare. And it hasn't quite bounced back yet. There's still a lot of shortage and the cost has gone up dramatically as a result. We, on both of those issues, your Grand Rapids Chamber led statewide initiatives to change policy at the state level. We had policy that was adopted just in November. It was actually the only legislation passed in November session in lame duck. And it was our housing bills that changed some of the ability for local governments to be more flexible in their ability to maybe the size of lots that were required or create a higher density to create more units in our communities. It gave the local governments that flexibility that they didn't have in the past. And then we also led an effort on childcare, and we created a program called TriShare, which is a national kind of a pilot where the employer, the employee, and then you can apply for a grant for your childcare cost to help for some of those that cannot afford the full cost. And then more locally, we have been spending a lot of time in public safety, particularly in downtown Grand Rapids and some of the other business corridors. I always am reluctant to say homelessness because your housing situation and behaviors don't necessarily align. You can be without housing and not have to have bad behaviors. And our business community was experiencing a lot of bad behaviors. Whether it was, we actually had restaurants that had people that went right into their kitchens in the middle of the lunch hour and started grabbing food out of off of plates that were being served. And I mean, it shut them down in the middle of lunch hour. We had a lot of situations that our business community was telling us was a problem. And so we've been working with the city of Grand Rapids to try to address some of those issues and working with the police department to get some of the enforcement. The police department in Grand Rapids is understaffed. They have had a lot of retirements, and so they're about 30 people short, which is almost an entire shift. And so we've had to be working with them to help solve that issue as well. Leadership programs, I mentioned Leadership Grand Rapids, which is about building community leaders and making sure that we have the leaders in our community to continue to create the kind of community we want to be in. But we also have a lot of other programs that build personal leadership skills, women in leadership, executives, new managers, and a lot of those kind of programs. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion programming is really designed to help our members attain their goals, whatever that might be. Is it reaching diverse customer base, attracting, retaining diverse talent? Whatever their objective is, we try to provide them the resources and some of the knowledge that we, our subject matter experts have, help them meet those goals. Our fourth area is our business growth area. And this year, in 2022, we announced the launch of our Center for Economic Inclusion. So building upon some of the programming that we had for our business community to help them grow their businesses, we are making an intentional focus on the underserved populations in our community. We have about 1% of the businesses in our county are owned by a person of color, which is really not something to brag about. And so we want to build wealth across our community and build wealth through business ownership. And so we launched the Center for Economic Inclusion in September to help build business ownership in our diverse populations as well. And then I mentioned our office, and you're like, how can your office be part of, how you serve your membership? And we were talking a little bit about when we moved into our office, it's been 5 years ago now, into the building right next door. And our office is a benefit to our chamber members. We have several meeting rooms. We have a work cafe. The first floor is like a coffee shop that members can come in and work, have a cup of coffee on us, connect with one another, jump into a meeting room to host a meeting. We love seeing the executive leadership teams for local businesses doing their strategic planning in our space. So on January 9th, we kicked off an expansion of our office space because it has been going so well, and the use of the space has been so high that we determined that we needed to expand that. And so when we moved, our intent was to make our office not just an overhead cost for us as a place for our employees to show up and work, but make it a benefit for our members. So 80% of our office space is for our members and 20% for the staff. With the expansion, that number will be even smaller for the staff because we're committing more meeting rooms for our team. Couple of last things I mentioned, our annual meeting is coming up February 1st. We will be sharing a lot more detail about the housing needs assessment. And we also do an annual survey of our membership, which we get really good participation. We usually have 700 to 800 businesses that respond to our survey, and it helps guide our work, quite honestly. Because we've used the information in the past and we've done, they've seen the effect on our work, I think it helps them say, it's worth my time to fill it out. And what we are hearing from an economic standpoint, and we will have a full report at our annual meeting, but there is some caution, a lot of caution in the business community right now that we're seeing going into 2023. Although less than at the national level. So we're doing a little bit better here in Grand Rapids than what we're seeing at the national level, or even across the state of Michigan. They are still hiring, but they're saying that they're making some cuts is in the capital investment. They're not investing in maybe new equipment or delaying some of that investment in new equipment until can kind of see where the economy goes from here. So some of that may not surprise you if you're in the business world. You're probably feeling it yourself. But we have two economists that will be speaking, and then a panel of business people that will be kind of confirming kind of localizing that even more at our annual meeting on February 1st. I mentioned the housing numbers already. I would just finally close, and I want to make sure I leave plenty of time to answer questions. Just saying that we have been extremely fortunate to be able to recruit some of the best and brightest talent to work for our organization. I'm very proud of the work that our team at the Grand Rapids Chamber does. We have 35 full-time employees that are working on behalf of the business community every day. And I can tell you without any hesitation at all that we are leading in our Chamber of Commerce industry. I'm highly engaged in our professional association at the national level. And I hear and see what other what chambers of commerce and other communities are doing. And I would put us up against pretty much any community. I remember when I first moved here and got engaged in they call it the Metro Chambers organization at our national level. It's the largest chambers in the country. So we are one of the larger chambers in the country. And I was a little intimidated thinking I'm here with like New York and LA, and I'm going to feel like the little guy in the room. But I was quite pleasantly surprised when you start talking to others, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. I have nothing to be intimidated by. We can hold a candle to these. So once again, Grand Rapids is fighting above its weight class. We were talking about that prior to lunch. We have two members of our team. I just came off the national board, and we have two members of my leadership team who are now serving on the national board because they're each leading one of the 5 divisions. So 2 of the 5 divisions of our professional association at the national level are being led by one of the Grand Rapids Chamber staff members. So hopefully that's testament to the kind of leadership we're providing here in Grand Rapids, but also on a national level, impacting businesses in our region. So with that, I would like to make sure that I have plenty of time to answer questions and get you all on your way the rest of your day. What's your burning questions?
So when you refer to the housing staff, are you referring to just the center of Grand Rapids or greater?
Greater Grand Rapids, we have, I don't have them off the top of my head, but we have 35,000 is Kent County. So that's countywide, and then we drill down and we also know what we need specifically in Grand Rapids. And there's for whatever reason, and don't quote me on this, I feel like the number 8,000 something sticks out to me for specifically for the city of Grand Rapids. And the number of rental units is about 15,000 countywide, and the rest of that's owner occupied. So it's quite a, it's more than half of it is owner occupied that we need. Right now, one of the challenges, we talk about supply and demand, it changes the cost, right? Right now, you have to basically need a annual salary of about $107,000 to enter the owner occupied market. That's the minimum level income that you would need right now to buy a home. So that's keeping some people out of home ownership, and why we're looking at what are some of the opportunities. And of course, rents are going up, but with some of the changes I mentioned, the laws allowing the cities to change some specifications, maybe make smaller lots or more density, then you can bring some of the costs down as well.
So follow-up question to that then. So what new developments are there in Kent County that would survive, satisfy that number? And where do we fit within a range of other cities of our size?
There are a number of developments. We're not doing them as fast enough. And we've actually, one of the things that our staff is doing is working with local governments and, it's like Sparta and other places in rural areas of Kent County, because oftentimes what happens as a developer, you come to the city planning commission or the city commission and the neighbors don't really want, they like that farm that was across the street for forever, right? And they like that area and they don't want it developed. And we had an experience where there was a housing development in Sparta, that's why I mentioned them, with 250 units that was killed. I mean, it was stopped because the 6 neighbors didn't want that to change. And so we're trying to be more proactive and work like with the superintendent of schools and others that are, positively impacted by new houses because there's new students, and with new students comes revenue for the school that may be having declining enrollment. And there's a lot of connected dots here. And so we're working with some of them to try to bring another voice to the table, as well as some of the policy changes that I made. I don't know what's happening in other communities. We're talking about it when I go to the national meetings. Everybody's saying housing's a problem for them. I've not heard anybody say that they've done the assessment to actually know the significance of the problem or what they're doing about it. We work with Ottawa County as well, so it's kind of a regional effort. And recently Allegan and Muskegon counties have reached out to us and said, hey, can we join your work and can we find out what the assessment, or can we do assessment in our region? And we're happy to do that because this really is one economy here if you think about the regional economy.
What's the difference between our chamber and DGRI, or maybe how you work together? What's the biggest difference between?
Yeah. We work really closely with Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. is very specifically by law, ordinance here in Grand Rapids focused on a specific geography of downtown. They're supported by an additional tax that the local buildings downtown pay as additional assessment for those that are downtown. I live downtown. It's a separate line item on my tax bill that goes to keeping the place clean, putting on Winterfest, all those things that we do in downtown. So Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. is very specific. They cannot do any work outside of that geographic area. Because those are the people paying into the fund. We have a partnership with them. And the city of Grand Rapids, and it's a three-way partnership, and we have a person on our staff that has been recruiting and working to recruit and retain specifically retail businesses. Because we had some gaps in downtown Grand Rapids. We lost some during the pandemic, et cetera. And so kind of refilling some of those with restaurants and small shops. And so we do have a partnership that way. We work a lot with them, and we work a lot with experienced Grand Rapids folks. And then the right place as well. Especially we, I don't know if other people think of us this way. We call ourselves the big three: the Chamber, Experience Grand Rapids, and the right place. Each of us with a very specific lane of work, but all going in the same direction in unity and pushing the community forward. And I meet with Randy Thalen, who's the CEO of the right place, and Doug Small, who's the CEO of Experience Grand Rapids. Almost monthly, just to make sure that we're aligned in our work. And I sit on both of their boards too, just to, again, keep that communication open. Other questions?
How many members are there in the chamber?
We have, thank you for asking that question, because we just finished a record-setting year for us. And again, we are bucking the trend in the Chamber of Commerce industry. Most chambers, like a lot of membership organizations, have seen decline in membership. We had 561 new members last year. We had some attrition as well, because there's some businesses that close, or people that retire, or mergers, whatever it might be. So we ended up with about a net increase of 300. And so we're at I just looked before I came over here, 2,407 as this morning. Our goal is to be at 2,660 by December 31st of this year. So we're on a growth trajectory. Our plan is to grow as an organization, because if we're growing, then we can have more impact on our community, deliver more results for our members, and have more influence at the state level.
So that's individuals, right?
Those are individual businesses.
Individual businesses.
Those are individual actual businesses. And our model, different than like a club like this, where you're a member as an individual, and the Grand Rapids Chamber, the business is a member. Any employee of that business can be involved. So if the business is a member, the whole group's a member.
Are there any nonprofits involved?
There are, yeah, we have quite a few nonprofit organizations that are members. We have some units of governments in school districts that are members as well, because they want to be able to connect to the business community and engage that way. Other questions?
I'm another one. With, we had our COVID. Did you, and obviously you have Epic Awards, you have Athena, many West Michigan policy forum. Did you scrap any of your, did you put everything on pause and then moving forward kind of with, will we still see your health summits? And was there anything that just, you all said it's time to get rid of this? Or
COVID was a interesting time for all of us, especially someone, we do 160 days of programming every year. So 160 days a year, we have some sort of program or event, not committee meetings, but something that we're delivering content. And so we really had to learn quickly how to change the way we delivered that. We didn't cancel much. We actually switched to virtual very quickly, actually added a lot of content, because we were providing at the very beginning 2 to 3 times a week virtual webinars on, because there was just so much change, so much things happening so fast. When we came out of the other side of the pandemic, there were only a couple of events that we did away with, because we just we had new things that we needed to focus our attention on, and only so much human capacity on our team. And so there was a couple of events that we did away with, but most of the signature events, like Epic and which is our business awards, annual business awards, our Athena program, all of those are still with us. We have our healthcare summit coming up in March, and we have a diversity, equity, inclusion summit, and a CEO summit. Did I see a hand back there somewhere?
Where are you from originally?
I am from Southeast Minnesota. not far from Rochester, Minnesota. I grew up on a small dairy farm in rural southeast Minnesota. My whole family still lives there. I have my parents and two brothers, two sisters all live in that area. They don't have the dairy farm anymore. That's too much work. And so, but I graduated with 18 kids in my high school class. So it was that's how rural it was. That school is no longer exists. It's merged with somebody else by now. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. What a privilege to stand before this group. And
Hey,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have a. Things you can think of us when you're going through that coffee.
I'm a coffee drinker.
Good, good. Well, we're proud to have you here and hear what's going on. It's great, you know, we've got Chamber, which sounds like it's the best one in the country. Having worked with Experience Grand Rapids, I can tell you, they're the best in the country, and I've been around the country seeing many of them. We've got the Right Place program, which is the best in the country, and we've got the Grand Rapids Lions Club. Was that so, if anybody gets some pictures of my gavel, I'd love to see them. Okay, fine. Adjourned.